Hello friends, Heidi here from Rain Country. God is good all the time. And I wanted to talk a little bit today about how I dry my beans and how I store them. So as I mentioned before, when it comes to my beans, I really like the runner beans. I'll go ahead and put a picture of those right here. They get really big. But I like to harvest them when they're a lot smaller, like maybe about this big and this wide, to use as a green bean, because they're kind of thin this way, and then they're just the right size, and they have a great flavor as a green bean. And so I can can them, I can freeze them, I can dehydrate them. I actually haven't tried canning these particular beans because I usually just take care of them as they're coming in. But I've canned green beans before, and maybe next year I'll think about canning some. But I like freezing them quite a bit in small batches that are just the right size for us, for two people for a dinner. And then also dehydrating them is really great. I just started doing that this last year. I think I have a video on that. I'll go ahead and link to that right up here. But then once I got enough green beans put away, then I'll just let the beans finish out on the plants, and then they will get quite large. They don't look as big once they're dry, but they get quite large and give me a lot of beans for using in chilies and making burritos and that kind of stuff. And so you can see I have a bunch right here. These were the last ones that I shelled, and so what I'm going to be doing with these is putting them in this jar. I've got one jar here filled already, and that one's done, it's sealed, and I'm hoping to get at least a couple more jars. This is enough beans right here for quite a few dinners for just me and Mr. Rain. So you got to remember, these are dried, so they'd still need to be soaked and cooked. So even just a small amount, like right this much right here, is enough for at least one meal for the two of us. And so I'm going to show you what I do with the beans, and once they get to this point. Oh, first I want to explain how I've been drying them. There's several ways you can dry them. Now, if you live in a dry enough climate, you can simply leave your beans on the vines, because we grow pole beans, or on the plants, and once they get to where they're very papery like this, then you can just pick them and bring them in and shell them and do that. Now, because we live in a very wet climate and we're into our rainy season right now as it is, I like to get the beans off of there as soon as I can and get them in a dry spot to finish their drying out there. Now, last year I tried something different. I decided to pick them all at once, put them in a basket, and thought that I could keep them aired out enough that they would dry well in there without molding. That was a mistake. So then I tried laying them out on a big table on a towel, and then mixing them up periodically, and it still didn't prevent them from molding. It was a really kind of an issue. Now, I probably could have put a fan in there on them, and that would have been fine, but I always try to resist using electricity if not necessary when it comes to stuff like that. So what I'm finding this year that's working really good is to pick them in clusters like this when I'm able, and I'm just hanging them over in the greenhouse. We've got some boards in there for tying up cucumbers, tomatoes, and whatever we're growing, and I've been hanging them over that. The timing's just right because the plants are all finishing out there, so I can just hang them and let them dry to this point at least, and then bring them in. And then I've been putting them on a tray like this. This is typically what I do with the ones that come off the vine. I don't have anything to hang them from. I'll just bring them in, put them on a tray like this. This goes on my dehydrator rack. I'll go ahead and link to a video on the dehydrator rack so you know what it looks like. Mr. Brain built it himself, but these things here we bought separately at our local store. And anyway, so I will just lay them on this tray. So I've got some green ones in there because, well, they either fell off or they didn't have anything for me to hang. Now, you can make ways to hang them, and there is an old-fashioned way called leather breeches, I believe, where you stack your beans while they're green, and you thread through them like this, where you crisscross them, and that way they're getting the most exposure to air all the way around, and then you just thread through them, and then you hang them wherever in your house for them to dry. And that's a really good way. I know there's somebody that follows me here on YouTube that does that, and it's an old-fashioned way of doing it. To me, that's an extra step that I'd rather not have to take if I don't need to, and I really don't like having to hang stuff over my house if I don't have to. So using the greenhouse is working really good for me. But if you don't have a greenhouse, you have a lot of wet weather, and you need a dry place to hang it, that's one way to do it, is do the leather breeches. And you can look that up online, on probably even on YouTube. I'm sure you can find someone doing that. I have yet to try it myself. I might do it just for fun sometime, just to see how effective it is in comparison to the way I'm doing it. But my beans are drying out so fast, even on wet days in the greenhouse. You'd think the humidity would be pretty high in there, but they're drying out quite well. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do, since these are nice and dry, I'm going to go ahead and get these put in this jar here. And you can see here, this is just a paper plate tray. We found a bunch of these at a garage sale, for really cheap, and so we grabbed them. And what I've been doing is I've been putting some of my beans in trays like this, like smaller things like my peas and whatever. But now what I'm doing is laying the bigger beans like this on there, and then when I just feel like doing it, because I actually enjoy sitting down either in the evening or early in the morning while I'm having my jet fuel latte, and just even some of these that are still kind of leathery feeling, just going ahead and opening them up. I mean, really what you want to do is you want to wait until this is papery. But these particular kind of beans, some of your other beans, you can just rub them like that and break up that paper and the beans will just fall out. But these ones are so thick that even when they're fully dry, they still need a little bit of cracking open. Whoop! I had a bean go flying. But anyway, what I like to do is just, I'll sit down and just do a whole bunch of these, and then I'll put them on the little tray like this, the little basket, and then put them back onto the dehydrator rack, because I have several of these. I have like 8. I can put 8 of these in there. And then just to make sure the beans finish drying all the way before I put them in my jar. And so that's what I'm going to do with the rest of these. I won't do them all right now on camera. And then right here in this bag is where I put the beans that I'm saving for seed. So I've got quite a bit, because 2 reasons. One, because I'm going to share some with my neighbor, and also because I like to plant a lot of beans. And I'm going to try to work on remembering to do more succession planting, like planting some and then a couple weeks later planting some more, so I can constantly have beans coming in, because they're so useful as both the green bean and a regular, a dry bean, and these grow so good for me. Now I will be trying other varieties of beans, but this is what I'm doing right now. So as you can see, this jar here, I've marked it Beans 2018, and I can look right at these beans and know that these are my runner beans by the way they look. And so this is sealed, it's vacuum sealed using my brake bleeder method. And I do have a video on that I will go ahead and link to right up here. And so that is what I'll do with this once this jar is filled up, and then hopefully I'll be able to get a 3rd jar out of that. Okay, so don't forget to check out that video on how I vacuum seal my jars. I actually show 2 methods. If you have a food saver, you can use your food saver to vacuum seal. I've personally found that the brake bleeder method works best for me, and I don't have to rely on electricity for that. I can just totally by hand, and it works really good. I have no problems with it, and yeah, and that's what I'll do. So, and then I'll put them away, and whenever I'm ready, I can pull some of these beans out, soak them. I usually soak them in a little bit of vinegar and some rainwater for about 24 hours, rinse them, and then I cook them. Some people wonder why you soak the beans. I mean, this is an old practice. It's been done for as long as I can remember. And I never understood it back then either, but soaking and then rinsing is going to help break up those phytic acids to make the beans more easily digestible. And so that's why it's good to soak your beans and your other grains. I do the same thing with my wheat berries. I have 3 types of wheat berries in here. It's spelt, soft white wheat, and hard white wheat, and this is what I use for my homemade breads. These are actually ready to rinse and then dry, and then I'll grind them up when I'm ready to make some bread. So anyway, I hope that gives you some ideas on how to dry your beans if you're new to growing beans, or maybe you're in a wet area like mine and you wondering, what do I do, because I can't just leave them out there, they mold. I tried that before, so I know. Hopefully this will give you some ideas. Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed this video and that you learned something new. Thanks for watching. Take care and God bless.